Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful world. And I'm Vladi, and I'm honored and really happy and appreciate as well. I'm going to use the word appreciate, which I love, having Gena West today. She's not only my beautiful friend, but she is a woman that inspires so many and created an amazing success. But the reason we have her here today is her amazing book that has been released last week, and it's called Palm Trees in the Storm. Welcome, Gena.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vladi. Thank you.
We know each other, so watching you on this journey has been absolutely a joy and really an inspiration. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to actually introduce Gena. I want to say something more because obviously she's a friend. I'm going to read to you who Gena really is. And Gena is an award-winning singer, songwriter, and performer. Now she's an international best-selling author in many countries, and she'll tell us more about it, which is absolutely amazing. It happened so fast that we were just clapping her hands all the time. Um, and she has written a song called Joy. I
Yeah.
love the song. And she was singing for us on her launch of the book, which was in London. I was really grateful to be part of it. And she sang a song and left us stunned with the beautiful launch party. But Gena has many talents. She talked on a TEDx, and I'm going to say, she's also a motivational coach and a speaker, and she has a great gifts, many gifts, which I know, and she's empowering others in many ways. And she's of Nigerian heritage, was born and educated in the UK, where we met, and lived in London, Accra, and New York. You can absolutely read more about Gena in her amazing book. But Gena, let's start and give us some secrets about what was your intention. What is
Well,
your intention with the book?
Vladi, it's interesting because you're absolutely right. People know me as a singer, as a songwriter, as a television host, and to be able to add author to that list is such a humbling experience, and it's just I feel so privileged to have been able to do that and to actually create this work of art because that's what it is. It is purely fictional, and I called it Palm Trees in the Storm. And the reason I gave it that title, yes, Vladi, is because I look at us as human beings, and honestly, what I see is resilience. I see an inner strength. And some people exhibit that more than others. But primarily, I think that if you're really true to your authentic self, then you're imbued with this incredible resilience, and you become unshakable, you become unbreakable, just like a palm tree bends all the way to the ground when the storm comes but doesn't
Mm.
break. That's who we can be as human beings. And it's my hope, it's my desire that people will read the book and they'll be able to see how you too can become a palm tree in the storm.
I love that. I really love the concept of it, and I really love how you actually describing. In fact, firstly, I'm gonna say it's amazing that you mentioned this is a fiction because all of us at the lounge we were saying to Gena, "What's true in it?"
Yes. Well, you
So
know what? It's funny that you say that because even my husband just yesterday said to me, "Oh, Gena, I can see the character. You are clearly Jessica. That's the lead role, and then these two are your siblings, and the others." And I said, "No, actually." But I think that what happens with authors, particularly when it's your debut, I think that we have a natural inclination towards what we know, right?
yeah.
So, and by that I mean characters that we know, or a story that we know, somebody told us, or an upbringing, an environment. We're better able to describe those environments if we've experienced them, right? And
Yes.
so it gives it an authenticity. So, and I know a lot of writers who say this, who say, yes, well, there's one writer, I won't mention her name, but when I read her book, and it's a New York bestseller, and I said, "Oh, is that your mother? Is the mother your?" She was like, "No." Even though the characteristics, the everything is exactly the same. But do you know what I mean? So we do pull
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Yes, of course we do.
It's
Of
the
course.
lessons. Yeah, it's the lessons, isn't it? We learn in the life, and mostly some of them, if we're inspiring others,
Yeah,
we would love to actually express it in the way of lessons and teaching them or
exactly.
giving them a hints of what worked and what didn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going back to your beautiful. Have you? I'm going to ask this because I love hearing like the amazing success you created. It's really inspiring. And I often sometimes hear people saying, "Oh, it's easy for some people." So I'm going to ask this for an audience too, so we can understand. Have you actually experienced any struggle writing it, or anything, or was it just a smooth write?
Okay, in all honesty, and I think this is where the expression ignorance is bliss comes into play. Because obviously, it was my very first attempt. So, my first draft, I've got to say, was actually the easiest because again, I was living in this blissful ignorance, right? I just was just writing, it was pouring out of me. So I was just putting it down in any way that I thought worked. And I was so excited to send it to loads of beta readers. And I was shocked when the feedback came back. I mean, it wasn't terrible,
Mhm.
but it wasn't what I expected. It was like, Gina, this is a really good story, but it just needs more this, needs more that, then more character. And I was like, oh, show, don't tell. And all those things that we learn as writers as we go along. So it was really was a work in progress for me. I had to learn as I went along. And and the result was beautiful. I mean, I sent it to an editor the first time around, and she's the one who tore it to pieces. I have to say, but as is her job. And she said to me, "Listen, you really have. I love the way you write." She said, so that was encouraging. And she said, but you really need to give this character more meat. There needs to be more character development. We need to. It can't just be Jessica centric. We need to know about the other characters too. Stuff, really good advice. And so I then sat on it for a little while, did my second draft, which took a little bit longer, was perhaps, as you asked the question, a little bit more problematic because then you're really paying attention to detail and
Yeah.
you're trying to fix the things that were perhaps needed fixing. And then after that initial sort of first two drafts, it started to flow. In fact, I took a break from it. I did. And I would advise people sometimes you need to take a step away because then when you come back to it, you see it differently. You see it
Thank
differently. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for saying it because really I see in the world of an author is how it's good to have a deadline, but sometimes it's really better to let go. And there is a
yes,
reason for certain things. It's sometimes we're not ready, or sometimes we haven't quite experienced what we need to experience to make the book complete for us. And I say this lovingly
absolutely.
because
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And you know what? I'll even add to that and say that there's a time for everything. And sometimes with the first book, oftentimes, and I can't generalize, but I think generally speaking, the a debut author is doing it. You're doing it of your own accord. It's not that you have a deadline per se. And so
Mhm.
this is time. It is a learning curve, and this is the time to really take your time and sit away, take some time away from it if you need to, and really give it what it needs. Because the second time around, of course, it's going to be a little bit easier because once you've done something, you've got that experience. It is a
Yes.
little easier. You now have your process, and so it becomes easier, right? And then
Yes.
you can. If the publishing house says, "Look, we have this deadline," you can meet the deadline because you
Yeah.
know how to make it work,
It's
right?
so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. But this is amazing. Also watching, because you've created so many different ways of success, and this was something new for you. It was something you've never done
Yeah.
before, something you've
Yes.
learned. Is there a
Yes.
second book in Gina? I have to ask.
Oh gosh, there are several books in Gina. And
Mm.
to be completely honest with you, the very first book I thought would be nonfiction because there's so much I want to pour out. And I thought, okay, my first book is going to be a nonfiction book. And in fact, I started this book with that in mind. And then this story just started pouring out of me. I mean, I was prolific writing. And I thought, okay, I need to make this a novel. And I'm really glad I did because there's a very powerful message in there. And I actually think it's more digestible when it is a story
Yeah.
that people can relate to. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I love what Oprah said. There isn't a story that is told that somebody else has not experienced. So it makes it relatable for so many and inspiring. And I know me and you talked about there was a book when I was 14, which was by Naomi Campbell, The Swan. And that
Mhm.
was something that really inspired me.
Inspired you. Yes, yes, I
And
remember.
this is something that I see your book doing, like we don't even go in our mind sometimes the length of people that has such a huge impact, profound impact, that the story tells them, okay, I'm never gonna give up. And like you
Yes,
said, bend and that's why I wanted to actually share with the audience about the challenges, because sometimes people think, oh, it's easy for her, it's easy for them, it's easy, and it isn't. It's all of us go through a journey where we just can't give up. We're doing something
absolutely. And
new.
and trust me, you're going to have moments where basically you feel dry. You feel like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I've exhausted this. I don't know what else to write. I mean, luckily, I didn't really experience that. Like I say, I was
Mhm.
prolific. But where I did have, if one can call it difficulty, then difficulty is when I had to go back and try to address some of the issues. So the say, don't tell. So I really had to reread things and see it from perhaps from an editor's perspective, even not even a
Yeah.
reader's, but an perspective, and just say, okay, you know what? Rather than tell them how Jessica was feeling, let me show them how Jessica was feeling.
Mhm.
It's just things like
Yeah.
that. Which our fiction writers will understand. And I think, in a sense, that's why I niched my first book. I wanted it to be nonfiction because I thought that
Yeah.
was easier. uh,
It's true.
yeah,
Yeah,
for me.
I love you said that, because sometimes we incline to take a step that we feel we're more comfortable with. We don't have to be, it's like, oh, okay, let me do this first and then jump into it. And I've
Yeah,
learned in a personal development world, get the toughest task for which
yeah,
we have to deal with every day, put it on the
yeah,
number one list,
yes,
get it out of your way straight
yeah,
away, and then everything
yeah,
could just flows.
exactly.
But if you keep it in the mind whole day, like, oh, I have to deal with it and wait
Yeah,
for the rest of the day,
yeah,
then the whole day is in a different energy. And what you showed is you really pay attention to your intuition. You
yes.
actually chose the goal, started going towards it, but it changed in a way what we was, but
Mm.
still came out as
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely. I did listen, and I actually believe, at my core, that when you're meant to do something, there is a flow. There's a natural flow. It's not difficult because something about it feels natural, feels like this is meant to be. And somehow each step you take leads you to the next step. And I actually really believe that. And that's what was happening with the book. It's not because I was a genius or anything, it's because I stepped into my flow, and it was time. The time was right.
Mm,
It was the time. Yeah.
mm. Tell us, what is your favorite part of the book? I know you wrote it, but when we sometimes reread it, I know being an author, I read the fairy tales to kids, and I'm like, particularly favorite
Yeah.
part of mine. There are a couple. So what is yours?
It's funny that you asked that. I'm not entirely sure. I know that at the launch, I read the bit about the roof gardens purely because that's where we were. I was doing the
Yeah.
whole thing, and that's not necessarily my favorite part. That's the bit where she basically realizes she's in love with someone. I think one of my favorite parts of the book is near the beginning when it's the young Jessica, and she is when you see the dynamic between her and her family, her siblings, her parents, when her father is telling her stories about their heritage, the Kalabari culture, and
Mm,
what. And I love that because I know that it's going to sort of educate a lot of people when they read it
mm,
about them too. And so I enjoy that aspect of it. I like it when she's at boarding school and she has a few challenges that she has to deal with, because I know that a lot of young girls go through this sort of
mhm.
stuff. And there's various
Yeah.
moments of that I certainly enjoy.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
love, well, how would you describe to the audience the story, like in a quick sort of nutshell, like if you're telling your friend, like, oh, what's the book about? What would
Okay.
you
Well, there's
say?
a girl. She is of African origin, from a well-to-do family, and she is obsessed, absolutely obsessed with this prima ballerina that she sees on television, obsessed. And she really aspires to become world famous and become that, particularly because she comes from this large family where she is one of 8 children and she feels unseen. She feels like she's destined for something greater. And she thinks that this is her way of achieving that greatness. But of course, she's African. So she doesn't have the quintessential form physically of of the typical ballerina, because ballet is a more of a white,
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it, but it's
Yeah.
not typical. It's not a typical. You don't find a lot of African ballerinas, and so she has quite a few challenges to overcome, but the biggest one ends up being the challenge of how she sees herself, because the
Mm.
way you see yourself is how the world is going to see you ultimately.
You.
You accept yourself, your uniqueness, your bigger butt, your bigger legs, perhaps, your whatever it is that makes you you. That's when the world will embrace you.
Mm.
And so that's one of the lessons in the book.
It's my favorite one because that is something what I see continuously. And I really think it isn't a generation who has it and who hasn't. I think it's always in us where we don't feel
Yes,
good enough at some point. And that
yeah,
is especially teenagers, like these days, they compare each other, like it's this comparison out there as opposed to thinking, how can I get better than I was yesterday? And stop
yeah,
comparing themselves with others where they give away their power. That's why I
absolutely.
love your book because it reminded me of Naomi Campbell's one when, there was the message. It wasn't the story such, it's that message that impacts people. But messages are really well received through stories. So I love what you said because that is
Yes,
so powerful.
yes, yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And unfortunately, there are a lot of young girls who go through body dysmorphia,
Mhm.
where they don't really see themselves as they truly are. They think they're bigger than they are. They don't like their bodies, or they aspire to be something that they're not or can't even ever be. And so there are quite a few sort of, I suppose, topical issues that I deal with within the
Yeah.
book.
I love it because it really flows through never give up, never give
Yeah,
up. And it
yeah.
really is a resilient.
Which is your message as well. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm going to say that I met your beautiful family and the way your husband looked at you, and I had the privilege to see this in person, was like the proudness of a man to watch his wife to be this queen launching her book. It was beautiful. But I'm going to ask for the audience who wasn't there. Is your family proud of you? Has it changed kind of inspiration? Are your boys talking about like it is a proud moment to see your mama and your wife and and the further family as well and friends.
Yes, I mean, it's like you said earlier in this interview, it's not the first instance of success, right?
Mhm.
Because I have albums, I had a number one
Yeah.
hit, I've had some accolades, but this one is a big one for me because it's
Mhm.
so different. So it's unexpected, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's what you were seeing in Carlo, my
Mhm.
husband, when it's just that pride, that sort of wonder almost. And it took, I would say, a couple of days for it to sink in because it just seemed a
Mhm.
bit surreal. Uh, and then,
Well,
and
tell
then,
us more about it because you became an international bestseller in many countries. I'm going to let you name all of them in under 24 hours, which was
yes.
fantastic.
Literally within hours. I mean, the first one was the UK, of course, even before the launch party, I should say. So just at the beginning of the launch, and then in quick succession, there was Italy, there was Spain, there was the Netherlands. I was number one in several categories in the Netherlands and in different categories around the world. There was Italy, Spain, Netherlands, the UK. There's like so many. I'm like,
Yeah.
I really don't want to miss. I'm like, oh gosh, who am I missing? I know I'm missing a country. Germany, and then there was the
Mm.
USA and Canada, which were I was just wow.
Mm. How did
I was
you feel? Like, what was the emotion you felt when it was all coming? Because it is a great pride for us, isn't it? But when we're in the moment, everything's happening. And especially I remember as an author, the preparations and sort of a enjoyable pressure. I'm gonna call it the joyous pressure because there is, like making sure everything's perfect and everything works and the lounge is ready. And sometimes we experience difficulties, which, I remember my website crashed down on the day of launch and it was like, whoa. And I remember you mentioning some challenges too. What was when it all quiets down? What's that and you actually have a time to sit down and feel, breathe it in? What's the emotion
Well,
you
I mean,
felt?
if I'm absolutely, completely, brutally honest, the day after the launch, so when these messages were coming in, bestseller in Germany, bestseller in the world, #1 in the Netherlands, I think I couldn't compute it. So I was getting these messages, but it was in such quick succession. And
Mhm.
even the marketing company said to me, I had a call with them on Tuesday, and they said to me, "My goodness, we actually haven't seen anything like that." It was kind of astounding.
Yeah.
And so I think it took a good 48 hours for it to hit me. And it was
Mhm.
when a group of friends, lovely friends, decided to celebrate me and throw a champagne tea party for me. That's when it hit me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've done it. This is it. Because the day after the launch, all I could think of was the things that I still needed to do,
Yeah.
and I could not fully comprehend that I was an international bestseller. I couldn't comprehend it and what that means, and
Mm.
but now I do.
No, congratulations on behalf of me again and everyone else, because it is a truly remarkable achievement. And
Yeah.
it's that moment where you become an author. It's like a new you. You
Yes.
almost
Yeah.
like building a new identity with the new parts we
Mhm.
become. And it's a
Mhm.
beautiful one.
Yes,
It's
and I,
such
I
a
I do realize that this is just the beginning. I do realize that, and I don't mean this. I don't mean to sound trite or even ungrateful, because I am
Mm,
very grateful. I'm grateful to everyone
yeah.
who's supported me. I'm grateful to. I mean, and the support has been immense, immense.
Mhm.
And you're right. On the day of the launch, my WhatsApp just decided, because that's how I was sending out lots of messages, just decided to shut me out. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. This is when I need it.
Yeah.
And then I took a deep breath and I said, Gena, what is yours is yours. So nothing can shift that. What is yours is yours. It's going to happen. It's a prepared place. It's your prepared blessing, and it's going to come to pass. So nothing is going to change that. Not your crashed website, not your nothing. And so after the initial shock, and the sort of feeling of, oh my goodness, this is surreal, when it registered, I thought, there you go. This is what I knew in my spirit would happen. And it
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
It was so beautifully put, because really this is the mindset that the author has to have. It's not about those nitty-gritty things. It's about that energetic belief. And I love what you said. This is yours because you became one with it. And when we become one with something, we align in the same frequency and it happens. It's like people sometimes, so many times talk about, oh, I'd love to write a book. And I hear so many people and everybody can. And in fact, I'm really happy to hear that because to be fair, I don't think I know an author who's done one book and said, okay, I'm done. Because it kind
Mm.
of like starts the fire, and then you feel like you want to put more logs in and more logs in. And then you widening your ideas, like for me, I even changed genre and it is like there's nothing you cannot do these days. It is
Mm.
in the older days, if you were a children's author, you focused on one thing. Now you can be anything you decide to be.
Yes, yes, yes. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, it's
I'm gonna
beautiful.
ask I'm gonna ask you this question. Like, did it cross a mind to you? Because most of us authors then glance in having a movie done or maybe have being in a television. I know you've been in a television host, but I mean with your book or a future book, are you
Yeah.
actually entertaining an idea having
So
a some
as I was writing the book, I was seeing the scenes, if I'm completely honest. So I already saw it on the screen. So I
Yeah,
wrote it with that in mind.
I love
Um,
it.
so that yeah, that's part of the journey for sure. And which is also why I say it's just the beginning, because I see it on the screen. Yes, I do.
Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that you said I saw that because I'd like the audience to think, have the vision, have the vision and think from the vision, not from the current circumstances where you may be, and it's
Yes.
temporarily, because sometimes people allow themselves to not to take a step forward, not to start a book, not to because I don't have the money, I'm not a good writer.
Mm.
I'm gonna say this. English is not my first language. I mean, I've been here. I'm British, but I've been here 27 years. But it isn't. It isn't my mother's tongue, and my own kids are correcting my accent sometimes, which it makes you like, hold on, I've been here for 27 years. But the part is like there are editors, there are people in the world who you hire to help to actually bring
Yes.
this out. It's
Yes.
part of you, and these little challenges should not stop us. You
Absolutely.
have to, if you have the book inside you, bring it out. What was your why? Sorry, as I was talking, I could just see the energy flying through because somebody asked me that with the fairy tales, and I know my why were actually my grandchildren, which I don't even have.
Oh,
What
wow.
was your why?
Uh-huh. What is
Did
my
you have
why? Oh, you mean
of writing a book? Yeah,
of writing a book or of writing this
writing
book?
this book. This book,
Okay.
I'm gonna
So,
say.
so this book in particular is exactly what I said. I just have this heart for people. I have been blessed in that have I do actually have inside of me a confidence, a self-assurance. I know who I am. And I believe that that is due to my upbringing, the opportunities I've been given, the way I've chosen to live my life, etc., etc. And so from that place, I know that I can help others also find that within themselves. I believe everybody's got it within themselves. It's just a case of just tapping into
Yeah,
that inner resilience, into that truth, the truth that lies within. That's your power. It's that, that thing that makes you uniquely you is your superpower. And so it came from that place for sure. And that's why I say I started it with the why of, hey, I want to write a nonfiction, I want to empower, I want to, etc. And then this story came out, which
mm.
I believe is so much more accessible and as a first book anyway for me. And
Mm.
because I'm a bit of a storyteller, it's in my heritage.
A good one.
You know, yeah,
Yeah.
it just makes sense. It just made sense for
Mm.
me. And I want to show my children, unquestionably, I think that every mother feels this. You want your children to see you as an empowered,
Mm.
can do individual. Nothing is impossible. You put your
Mm.
mind to it, you do it. What you start, you finish. I didn't give up halfway. I didn't not do it. I did not release it. It's so funny because people come, like, wow, you were talking about this and you did it. You actually, yeah, because what you start, you finish.
Finish.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Absolutely.
My grandparents used to say that actually. And it's
Yeah.
funny that it's people like you saying it now, and another author actually reminded me of it, how it's embedded in us. And when somebody says that, and this is what we're talking about with the story, when it becomes relatable, you go
Yeah.
like, oh, I used to listen to this all the time. It's
Yes.
reminders as
Yeah.
well. And I love how we fly together and we
Yeah.
just rise together as well. And Gina
Mm.
actually had the Academy for a Confidence. So she does have it and she does walk the talk. And
Yes. Yes.
I always love, that's how, when we met years ago, that was really inspiring on Gina, the confidence. I was like, I want to just carry
Mm.
myself that way because
Wow,
when
you're
we,
right. That's how we met. I completely forgot.
yes,
You're right. That is how we
yes.
met. Yes. And for a long time, Vladdy, I probably wouldn't have said it the way I've said it to you today, that I have been imbued with this, I have this confidence,
Mm,
because I almost thought, oh gosh, people are going to think of me as, I don't know,
mm,
misunderstand it, arrogant. But no, you have to own. You have to
yes.
own
Yeah.
your yes, you have to take it and you have to embrace it. And
Mm.
that's how the world then embraces you.
That is
That's
so true. And I love you pointed it out because if people look at anything like, oh, what does she think of herself? Or usually comes from a place of unhappiness with ourselves.
that's
It is the and really starts with the self-love. When we build a self-love and we feel good about ourselves, we feel worthy, we feel we
mm,
deserve things, and also we feel we're good enough the way we are. Of course, we have always a way to improve.
yes.
We're
Yes.
never gonna until
Yes.
the day we die, and we never know how
Yes.
much time we have. We just don't
Yes.
know. But that place puts you into
Yeah.
admiration, looking at
Yes.
people with inspiration. It really only comes to
Yes.
some people are maybe glam and people
Mm.
experience something, but it comes to down to the attitude of the person, not
No, no, you
actually
just
the way
reminded
they carry.
Yes, I agree with you. And you reminded me of something that happened a couple of days ago. I had a call, actually a recorded Zoom call with someone for something, something relatively important. And she asked me the question. She said, "Oh, what would you change about yourself, if anything? What don't you like? What would you change?" And I really had to crack my brains. And I said, "Listen, I don't want you to misunderstand and think I don't believe in growth, because I believe that when we stop growing, that we might as well die. I believe in change. I believe in self-development. I believe in all of those things. But I am happy with me in the here and now.
Yeah.
I am happy with me. I like me." And I just want everybody to be able to say that with conviction. I like myself.
Yes.
Yes, there's nothing I want to change. You know what I mean? I'm not walking around thinking, "Oh no, I'm this and I'm that." No, no, I like me. Can I grow? Of course I can. But that's not a negative. That's part of
Yes.
being a human being. That's who we
Mm.
are. That's who we're meant to be. So,
Mm.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know why
I
I said
love
that.
that you mentioned that, Gina, because I was asked that question as well. I answered it the way that you did, and then I've heard one of these. I actually don't remember the name of the guy, but it was a Carlson show, and he was
Mm,
asking like, "What would you change if you go back?" But it's
yeah.
funny when you have the same belief for years, you're like, "Yeah, that's what I would do," because the
Mm,
truth is, if we realize that through all the struggles, failures, challenges, adversities, that's what helped us to be who we are. It's not
100%.
this. Yeah.
100%. In your
So,
mess is your
yeah.
mess. I'm
Oh,
telling
I
you.
love that.
Yes, and people just don't. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I could I could
I
talk forever
love that.
because
It's a great
because that
statement.
that is what I truly believe, and I say it all the time because it is the truth. It is the
Mhm.
truth. I tell you,
Oh,
your character, whatever makes you uniquely you, that is your superpower. Embrace it. Embrace it. Yeah.
as you said, it's the truth. I'm
Mm.
writing the book, which actually is about selling the truth.
Yes. Beautiful.
I love truth.
Beautiful.
And
Mm.
really, I think the world needs to have more faith and speak
Mm.
more truth and just really embrace
Mm.
this beautiful life in a different way than deceit and disloyalty and stuff. And I think it's really great to because when we look at the world with the beautiful lenses, through the beautiful lenses, it really is beautiful. And if you choose to use the different lenses, that's how you see the world. But the world is
Hello.
beautiful.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Oh.
Gina, thank
How
you so much.
lovely.
I'm gonna give you a final sort of message you would like to leave the audience. But before you do, I'm gonna say everything about Gina you will find under the video, all her contact links. You will find her link to her Amazon. It's dynamic, so you can choose the country which you're in and get the book anywhere. It is really remarkable. Thank you so much for your precious time sharing your
Thank,
message today with us. Congratulations again on being an
thank you.
international bestseller in various
Thank you.
countries. And we see you rising and shining and helping everyone, inspiring with your beautiful message, which I'm sure you will because I've watched you for many years. I'm really grateful that you're here. And what would be your final message for our beautiful audience?
Oh goodness me. I don't know who this is for, but whatever it is, whatever that dream is, that desire in your heart, you can do it. Literally, just take that first step and then start running. And one step becomes two steps, becomes three steps, becomes a little jog, and then before you know it, you are sprinting. You're sprinting your way to success. Yeah. If God can do it for me, He can do it for you. There.
I love it. Thank you so much, Gina. I really appreciate your time.
Thank
And
you.